as we head to the intersection of peace and tranquility. To take hold of what's ahead of us, the soul swims in ecstasy. The other kind guide our visions to a T. Through the darkness, they provide a purpose for me. With this new shining way, I cast out energy to change my family tree on a future day. Come to see victory as I stand before the glowing light. It will see me through. My dreams finally come true as the power of mighty momentum hits its stride. The spirit's wind lifts up and away. I give a hug with a smile of my lips and say, I'm free. I'm debt free. And now I'm on my way. Welcome, guys, to the K-2 Financial Health Channel. I wrote that poem in my financial health journal, honoring my three angels, my spirits, my journals, and my ward to be debt free and to get a hold of this financial literacy thing and establish my way of financial stability. I wrote that poem back in April of 2017. I've been asked to do this video throughout the years. Here it is. I've done a video on how I did it. Family, this is for my family downline, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, 200 years from now. And you listen to me and your family, it can be the same way for you. This is for you, family downline. Now on this video, I finally do it. I give the whys. I've been asked to do it. Here it is, 15 whys. My 15 whys are how I powered my way through all the hills and valleys, ups and downs, in the darkness. Of all my dark days and long nights, here it is. My 15 whys of why I went through the financial health journey that I went through. Stay tuned. And welcome back to the K-2 Financial Health Channel. If you're new to the channel and like what you get ready to hear in this video, I'm going to ask you to do one important thing for me. Share this information, this very valuable financial health information, with someone you care and love. You believe that they can use this information to their advantage going long term. Who knows? Maybe you can too. So before I give you my 15 whys of why I started my financial health journey, I'm going to give out a little update for you guys that's been following me along on my 2,774 day journey to $500,000 ticket, my 500K network challenge. That video is coming up, guys. I'm going to use a specific date I'm on, where I'm at, and give you some updates on where I'm at in the process, okay? So stay tuned for that. All right, I'm going to jump right into it. The first of my 15 whys of where I started the process, and stay tuned toward the middle. A profound situation happened to me back in 2015. I'm going to relay that to you guys in this video. So stay tuned toward the middle of this video of my 15 whys, and I'm going to detail that for you, okay? But the first why I started the process, guys, was, look, at the time I was going through a tough time in my life, right? There was some unsettled business in my life. I only had one constant. At this time, I was up in Minneapolis. I was a single father. My daughter had graduated a couple years before. Right now we're in 2013, where my life was unsettled. My only constant was my full-time job. I was in a relationship, a questionable relationship, with a woman that had 2 teenage kids, and they were coming to live with me in my small little condo, and me and her was talking about getting a place for all of us. I had my question marks. As a matter of fact, and not only in that relationship, but following through that relationship, but I had other question marks in my life as well about other questionable relationships, friendships I was involved with that there are a lot of question marks around it. So, but there was some doubts about myself too, guys. I was getting older. If you want to call it a midlife crisis, I was 45 years old when I started this process, and I had to make a move. I know I was getting older. I knew that years later that, Social Security and retirement, that kind of talk was coming soon, and I had to make a move. I had a little bit in my retirement fund at my job, but I was 40K in debt. And again, the question marks were looming, and there were some question marks on whether I could do this process, right? Never been through a debt-free process before. I had met Dave Ramsey through his YouTube channel, and I was listening to him and his information and reading his book. And again, even though I was starting the process, there was a lot of doubts, right? So I had to go through this process where I had to prove this to myself, right? I had to go out and face my challenge in the financial life, right? In the financial world, right? And I had to get myself right. And in that process, there was a lot of doubts. And I had to prove to myself that I could do it. And that was the biggest challenge at first. And one of the biggest whys why I did it. I knew if I got through that why, there were some other challenging whys of if I got through this why, I can challenge the other whys coming up here, okay? And so that just give you guys an example where my mind was at during that time period. But time was looming. Time was of the essence. I had to start. And as I started, I had to prove this to myself first. Okay, so the second why I started my financial health journey, guys, is, listen, guys, I read a report back in the day. It says 39% to 43% of adults have no money for savings. Zero money for savings. And guys, as I was getting closer and closer to, my retirement years and my, getting older, I was 45 years old at the time I started my journey, guys. And I knew I wanted to, as I got older, I wanted to have some freedom of choices, right? I wanted to go into my retirement or my older years with some freedom of choices, right? I didn't want that to be me, guys. I didn't want that stat I just gave you to be me, man. I wanted some freedom of choices. I wanted to have some savings, right? I wanted to have something in retirement. I wanted to have some money working for me as I got older, as I got to my retirement years, right? And so, yeah, man, I had to, that was a huge why for me. That was a huge push for me, personally. And I knew that whatever I was going to go through, I knew I was going to take some L's initially. It was the first time me starting, like I said before, it was the first time me starting this process. I didn't know how it was going to go, right? Well, I mentioned the question marks, right? There's a lot of things I had to get over, me personally, right? But I knew that was a huge why. This second why was a huge push for me to not only start the process, but man, I had to not only just start now, I had to start right now in this process to get through. And to have the freedom of choices that I wanted to have, I had to start this process now. And I knew one thing. The stat I gave you guys earlier, I definitely did not want that to be me. And so I had to establish a couple things first. My mental mindset and learning about myself and my relationship to money. But down the road, of course, I had this debt, this $40,000 in debt looming in on my face. And then get through that, establish some type of stability. What does that stability look like? An emergency fund. Once I got to that emergency fund stage, I was going to be at a point where I can take a breather and then move on from there. Okay, guys, so the third why I started my financial health journey, guys, is look, as I got older, as I got into my retirement years, I got into my older years, once I wanted to get through this process so I could be at a point where I talked about, in number 2, I talked about freedom of choices. Well, one of the freedom of choices was to be able to travel freely, right? Be able to travel freely, you know what I'm saying? And not worry about anything, right? Let me tell you guys something. I read a poll that says that 35% of American adults worry about money when they're on vacation, when they travel. And I don't know, guys, freedom of choices, that don't seem like that's freedom of choice to me, because you're stuck with what? You're stuck with owing somebody money for traveling or quote unquote enjoying yourself, right? And I can't enjoy myself like that, man. I knew that I did not want that to be me. 35% of American adults worry when they're on vacation. I did not want that to be me, man. I definitely did not want that to be me. I didn't want to be taking trips, and because that's not freedom of choice, is it, guys? I did not want to be taking trips and on a credit card. I don't know, I don't want to be taking trips and owing family and friends money, right? That's not my idea of a good retirement. That's not my idea of freedom of choice, guys. And that was a big why too, man. I want to be able to travel freely without worrying about it, right? You see all the time about people on these social media sites, right? Gramming it up on Instagram, right? Enjoying themselves, what it quote unquote look like. But don't you know, especially from this stat right here, right? It tells you right there, don't it, guys, that most people who are looking good traveling, it ain't all what it seems, is it, guys, right? These people are owing people, putting their vacation on credit cards, owing people when they get back there, having debt collectors call when they get back, right, guys, from their quote-unquote Instagram vacation. I didn't want that to be me, man. So there you have it. All right, guys, number 4. So there is a Duke University study out there that says that 90% of the American adults stress about money, and up to 50 to 60% stress about the daily activities when it comes to money, right? And so one of the biggest pushes for me, that was a big why for me as well, man, because, you know, stress plays a big part on your physical health, right? I mention to you guys all the time throughout my videos on my YouTube channel here, we talk about the different healths out there, right? There's 4 of them, right? 4 different healths, right? Physical health, mental health, spiritual health, financial health, right? And so having stress in your life plays a big part of your life, don't it, guys, right? Plays a big part of your mental health, right? It can affect your physical health, right? It can affect what you do in your spiritual health, right? And they all correlated, right? And they all have to work, your health have to work together for you to be a cohesive unit within yourself to make your life work properly, right? From my personal opinion, right? And so for me, having some physical ailments, I was going through blood pressure issues and cholesterol issues as I got older, and I was battling that, and then down the road dealing with being classified diabetic. And so it was very important for me throughout this journey, initially because of blood pressure issues and my history of blood pressure and different physical ailments, health issues, for example, cholesterol, for example. I had to make sure I alleviated all stress in my life, right? Within my relationships, friendship group, my environment where I was, and of course, going through this financial situation, this financial health journey, that I had to make sure that I cut back on, we talked about before, with debt collectors calling, right? On people, on money, having people bug you for money, right? Hunting you down. I had to eliminate all that in my life. That's what I wanted. That was a huge why as well, guys. I did not want that in my life, right? And so I had to make sure I want to live with less stress in my life, because that was going to propel me forward, right? That little Duke University, study that I told you guys about, that was a big push, right? That was a big push, something like that, right? And I've read other type of studies like that throughout the years, guys. And let me tell you guys something, man. I can't even tell. That was one of the biggest whys of what I wanted to get through the process. If I was going to go through some dark times, up and down times, that rang in my ear throughout my journey, man. It really did. All right, number 5, guys. Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law means that anything that will go wrong can go wrong, and it usually goes wrong when you're not prepared. If anybody out there that's followed my journey, my videos throughout this channel, you've heard me talk about my past. I grew up on welfare from a single mother. My mother raised us. She was tried and true, a great mother. I grew up with 3 other siblings, and I grew up on welfare. But as I got older, my welfare mentality stayed with me, contributing to some of my financial debt, my financial issues. But going back to it, when I was younger, my mom we would go through trials and tribulations, man, and making ends meet and putting food on the table. Things would hit us, right? Things would hit us here and there, knock us down, right? We had to get back up, right? Many different times, many days and nights, My mother would say, when something happened, my mother would say, damn, there's always something, man. Damn, there's always something. I can hear my mom's voice right now. My mom passed away back in 23, and I can still hear her talking. Damn, there's always something. And so usually that something was Murphy's Law kicking our ass, right? And let me tell you, you guys have heard my story. Murphy's Law kicked my ass with my welfare mentality up until I was 45 years old. So going through this process, that was a huge why. It was a huge why. It was a huge why to kick Murphy's ass. And boy, I enjoyed kicking Murphy's ass when I got debt free and put my emergency fund in place. And I talked about financial stability, guys. When I established financial stability, I enjoyed kicking Murphy's ass. And to this day right now, me being 6 figures net worth, Murphy's comes at me, right? You're financially stable, right? It don't stop him from coming at you, right? But that was a big push, a big why. See, what I did, guys, I made Murphy a character in my war, right? I used my dollar soldiers as characters. I used my angels up here that you see on the wall as characters, generals in my war. And we all ganged up to put our battle plan in place to go after Murphy and his minions, right? Broke, desperate, and stupid, right? It was my chore to go after Murphy's Law, guys. I made him a character in my battle plan. I made him a character in my story. And I set out to kick his ass. Because many times in my life, that thing my mom talked about, there's always something, I looked up, it was Murphy's Law staring at me, right? So that was a big why. Number 5, Murphy's Law. A big why I wanted to start this process and get through this process. Number 6, guys, I talked about my mother in number 5. Number 6, I wanted to honor the legacy of my mother. I told you about earlier about how she passed away in June of 23. I always will honor her. I told her on her deathbed that I'm going to make you proud of me and what I'm going to do next. I'm going to honor my mother, right, until the day I die, right? But because what she stood for, right? She was a giver. You know, in my honest, humble opinion, my mom gave too much, right? Sometimes to her detriment. But I have to honor her anyway, even though I disagree with some of her tactics on giving. Again, she had that giving ability, giving mentality, a giving heart. So I will honor that giving nature by putting myself in position to give back into my community, right? So that was a big push as well, right? That was a big why as well, to be able to hurry up. We talked about before. Well, I had to start not now, but right now. I had to get myself in position because I knew getting older and get myself going toward retirement years, I had to put myself in a great position, not only to do the things I told you guys about earlier, but I had to put myself in position to not only give back, guys, but also put myself in a position where I can give freely. Not just be able to give, but you better give freely without any kind of consequences associated with it, okay? That's a big part of it. And a big part of this as well is not only be able to help people, give and help people with money, but also use your money. I was able to get to the point where I can use my money to buy time, where I can loan my time out to people, right? So a big part of that is not just giving money, but also let the money work for you in buying time. And guys, I cannot forget about number 7. I want to give out hope to fellow Black Americans out there. And you know, this is the reason why, number 7 is the reason why I started my YouTube channel, actually. This is back during the pandemic, back in 2020. You know, I was on furlough for my job, and I was watching the news and checking out all the what was going on in the news at the time with the pandemic. And it was fairly obvious that people look like me was the bottom of the totem pole when it came to the health care. And so many Black folks passed away during that time period. And, you know, I had a front row seat to it. I mean, it was clearly obvious to me that, you know, talk about the have and have nots, and people who look like me and come from where I come from were the bottom of the totem pole. You know, we represented in a large, percentage the have nots. And so I wanted to just, 7 was powerful. This number 7 here, the 7Y was very powerful because, it came after my debt freedom. I went debt free back in 2017. So this kind of revigorated my empowerment. And in around 2020 came around, it just, upped my why, right? and made my why stronger. It made all my whys stronger. And so this is number 7. This is the why. And again, giving hope to fellow Black Americans. And number 8, guys, I have a stat for you guys here for Black people in America, right? Black people represent 13% of the population in the United States, but only 3 to 4% of the wealth. Only 3 to 4. Black people represent only 3 to 4% of the wealth in America. And number 8, I wanted to put myself in position. This was a big push as well. You guys have heard me talk about this on numerous videos in my YouTube channel, And a big push for me was to leave a lasting, number 8, leave a lasting imprint on future downline generations, right? Kids that are my nieces and nephews, my kids, cousins out there, kids that are not born yet in this family, leave a lasting imprint on my family downline. So years later, they can look back and go, wow, this K-2, this magical figure K-2 did it. How did he did it? I talked about that, did a how video back in the day, but this is the why. Why did he do it? This is why. I did it for you, downline. I did it for you, kids who are not yet born in this family. 15, 20, 50, 100 years from now, they're going to look back and they're going to look at my lasting imprint, right? And they're going to look and go, wow, he did this, he did that, he did this, he did that, to put himself on a platform to not only get out of debt, to get to financial stability, but also get to financial freedom, right? He got himself to a point where he got to 6-figure net worth, right? He got to a 500K, $500,000 ticket net worth, right? And this is why. To be able to transpose my mindset down to future generations, right? My family downline, leave a lasting imprint, mentality-wise, how to do it, right? Not just numbers-wise, but mentality, right? A financial literacy, financial mindset passed down to future generations, right? Family downline, right? And that was a big push as well, guys. I wanted to get to that point. And that why right there pushed me greatly. And number 9, guys, I wanted to prove people wrong. I wanted to prove others wrong. This was a big push. There were many nights, many dark times, many long days, dark nights, ups and down situations that I've been through in this journey. Many late nights that I've been out on the side of the road, right? Many times I've been out during storms, cold weather, hot weather. I remember during a snowstorm, for example, I went off and lost control of my car into a ditch. Many different times like that, right? During the times where I was working 100 hours a week, right? Would push me. Number 9 here really pushed me. To prove people wrong, to prove the naysayers wrong. And I know what your parents and my parents taught us growing up, right? You're not supposed to act like that or be like that or that kind of thinking process, right? Look, guys, throughout what I'm going to tell you guys through these whys, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to what we quote unquote learned growing up, right? right? And so this is a real channel, a real guy like me with a real reason, with a real why. And some of these whys may not correspond to how we supposed to think, may not correspond to how you think, but this is real. And yeah, I want to stick it to people. I want to prove people wrong, the haters, the teachers that said I couldn't do anything, the teachers that said I wouldn't be able to amount to anything as I grew up, right? The people that were hating on me, the naysayers, right? The Debbie Downers, right? The negative Nancys, right? I want to prove these people wrong, right? I give you an example. And let me give you guys an example. And bear with me here. Deion Sanders. I'm gonna talk about Deion. I played football. Please bear with me here. All right. Let me spell it out for you. I played football coming up, and up until little league, junior high school, into college. Right. I played defensive back, cornerback specifically. And when you play cornerback, you're guarding some of the top athletes on the field, wide receivers, right? And so you got to be on it. You got to be fast enough to deal with these guys. You got to be fast enough to run with these guys and be able to, to stop these guys from catching these touchdown passes, right? And so you got to have your quick wits about you, but you got to have your quick feet about you too. You got to be fast like Deion Sanders, right? What made Deion so special was he was fast, right? He ran a 4.1, 4.2 40, right? If anybody out there, you guys are out there know about football, I'll give you a hint. That's fast, okay? So, but more importantly, you got to be tough enough to go out, come up and tackle people, right? Tackle the running backs coming out of the backfield, for example. But getting back to wide receivers and guarding people, that was my job as a defensive back. That was my job as a cornerback, right? And in that process, guess what? You're going to get burned a few times, right? You're going to get burned for touchdowns a few times, right? As a cornerback, one of the great qualities of a cornerback is you got to be able to forget all that. Because guess what? The next play starts in 5 seconds, right? So you got to forget about that. You have a short-term memory, right? You got to forget all about that, right? I had a hard time forgetting about all that, guys. When I got beat for a touchdown, or it didn't have to be a touchdown. It could be a long play, or for example, that kind of bugged me. But in football, you got to be ready because plays are happening just like that every 4 or 5 seconds. You can't let that bug you because guess what? You got to forget about that because guess what? The next play is getting ready to happen, right? And so that was one of the biggest challenges I had in my football career. I would say that really derailed me and my development as a cornerback because I let things bug me, right? It was hard for me to forget about things. What most people won't talk to you about Deion Sanders throughout his lifetime, throughout his great career in football is that, yeah, he was fast. He had great instincts, but one of the great things that people won't talk about with Deion that they should is that he forgot about things just like that. He got to the next play just like that, right? Yeah, he got beat. Yeah, Deion Sanders, as great as he was, he did get beat. He knew he had such great confidence in his abilities. He forgot about that play and got to the next one real fast. And that's what made him great. That's what made Deion a Hall of Famer. And sometimes, man, what makes you subpar in one aspect of your life make you great in another part of your life. Just like I let things bug me in football. This made me great in my financial health journey. Because just like I didn't forget about that play, I didn't forget about all the naysayers out there. 2:30 in the morning when I'm struggling at work, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the night when I'm struggling at work, getting through work, when I'm struggling in all my dark times, when I'm struggling getting through this financial health journey, when I'm struggling going through all my dark up and down times of my financial health journey, right? I didn't forget about all the naysayers. I didn't forget about that teacher that said I wasn't going to amount to anything. I won't forget about all the Debbie Downers. I won't forget about all the haters out there that said I couldn't do it. I won't forget about all the negative Nancys. I won't forget about all the, crab in the buckets out there that try to pull me down to their level, right? I didn't forget about all those people, right, guys? I didn't forget about all that. And that pushed me. That was a huge why of why I wanted to get through this process. Good, bad, or ugly, or indifferent, guys. It didn't matter. I don't care how it looked. I gotta be honest. That was a big why. I wanted to stick it to them. All those things, all those people I just told you about. Yeah. I may not have had a bad memory in football, but I didn't have a bad memory when it came down to my financial health journey. I want to stick it to them. I want to prove out to people who gave up on me. So, hey, no matter how it looked, I'm telling you guys the truth, and so be it. So yeah, number 9 was huge for me, man. It was huge for me. You guys have been with me for a while. You've seen me during one of my videos. I think I mentioned this in a couple of videos. I know I have. I talked about when I was younger in high school, and I didn't really have a relationship with my father, but I had one encounter with him when he came to town. He met us for the first time, me and my brother, and he took us out and said, yeah, I'll do this, I'll do that for you, blah, 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 blah. So I challenged him on it, and I asked him, at the time I was a football player, again, in high school, I had football practice, and there was in a certain kind of Adidas shoe out there that I wanted. Everybody was getting it in school. It was a very popular shoe, and I wanted one for myself. I said, hey, look, the best way to see what he's all about is to challenge him, ask him, hey, buy me some shoes, right? So I asked him to buy me some shoes. He promised me shoes, this and that and the other, and one thing led to another. I didn't want him getting those shoes, and I had to answer to my teammates. You know what I'm saying? I'm bragging about, I'm getting this, I'm getting that. I'm gonna get those shoes too, fellas, and I never got the shoes, and that embarrassment stayed with me up until my adulthood, guys, and to this day, that stayed with me. I never got those shoes, and today I promised myself, number 10, that why I promised myself to get through this process to selfishly, look, I get to this process that I get to the point where, hey, when I get my financial health in order, I get my financial stability in order, I'm going to buy anything I want, right? I'm going to be able to go into any shoe store and buy any shoe that I want, right? That was a driving force for me as well, guys. Get to that point where I can buy any shoe that I want, right? And so that was a big push for me. Not only shoes, but going to buy any restaurant, buy any food that I want, right? Any restaurant, right? So that was it may seem selfish to you guys, or I really don't care, but I'm just giving you guys where I'm coming from. And that was a big push for me back in the day. To this day, it still is. I would say it's not as a big why as otherwise, but I got to be honest. It was a big why back in the day, and it's still a good why right now. Yeah, it means something. That when I realized I was at that point, guys, where I could buy anything I want, where I can go in any store and almost buy anything I want, when I can go into any restaurant and pretty much buy anything I wanted. Talk about the empowerment right here, right? Talk about the empowerment. A huge empowerment, man. A huge empowerment. A huge driving force. Why? Of why I wanted to get through this process. Number 11, guys. The 11th why of why I started my financial health journey. Something profound. I'm glad you guys have stayed with me, because this is where it gets meatier and deeper. Not saying the other whys I just mentioned to you guys were less important, but in 2015, again, I started my financial health journey in 2013. I was on a Dave Ramsey program, the Total Money Makeover program, to get myself out of debt. I struggled for a year and a half. Even though I was in the process, I was doing Dave-ish. I was not all the way in. Those lingering doubts I talked to you guys about, right? Those lingering questions I talked to you guys about was staying with me, right? Was staying with me, lingering, right? Didn't have the total confidence that I should have in the process, right? Being a year and a half into the process, right? Doubt myself, right? In the process, but not in the process, right? So, but something profound happened to me. And this happened after I was going through a separation with my girlfriend at the time. She locked me out of a house. I got into a situation where I talked to a guy to rent to an apartment with me. I was on the street. The guy was going to rent to me. This guy was catering to people who were homeless, were on the street. He was working through this apartment complex where this apartment complex was slated to be condemned. He had me come over, look at the property. He said, you can stay here, but this place is going to be condemned eventually. I can't say when. Eventually, this place is going to be condemned for a development that's going to happen here, years later. He said, look, you're welcome to stay here. I can't guarantee anything. So I got to this place. Me and her was going through our little, tiff, whatever. I left that place. Had to fight to get all my belongings from her in that place that I got locked out at. Here I am by myself in a rundown apartment complex, and still going through it, right, guys? Still going through it to my story, right? And one night I was in the bathroom in that dingy, rundown apartment complex, but it was home, right? I had a roof over my head, but inside that bathroom, inside that apartment complex, inside that apartment room that I was in, and it was 2015. The three angels you see on the wall up here, I've talked about these angels, my dead relatives, my grandfather, my uncle, and my man Oscar, my mother's significant other, who came into my life, right? In between time, my last angel passing away. You know, my grandfather passed away way back in 91. My uncle and Oscar passed away the same year back in 99. My last angel passed away. My last spirit passed away. Ever since then, I was seeing K-2 in my dream. K-2, K-2. And I haven't told this story to anybody, guys. I only told this story maybe a couple of times to a few people. But K-2 came to my life in a dream. I had no idea what it was. And I won't break it down all the way here, but for the gist of the conversation in number 11 here, you need to understand that K-2 was not something I came up with myself. K-2 came to me in a dream. When my last spirit, my last dead relative, my last angel on the wall here passed away in 99, that's when I started having dreams about K-2. Fast forward to 2015, when I was going through something in the mirror, in that rundown apartment building, in that rundown apartment I was at, in that dingy bathroom, I saw them behind me. I saw my 3 spirits behind me. And that generated this powerful why I'm going to tell you guys about. My powerful why, number 11. I want to honor my 3 spirits, my 3 angels that stayed with me, fought, and with journals in my war, with my dollar soldiers, fighting to get through this thing. Fighting to get through debt freedom. Fighting to get through my financial literacy. Fighting to learn about money and how my relation to money, my mentality, learning about getting to the point where I can get to the point of financial stability and get to where I am now. I had to honor these angels of mine that stayed with me, right? And learn about, they pushed me to learn about this. They pushed me to get through this process. And I didn't know at the time, but it wasn't no asking. They were pushing me. They were demanding me to get through this process, right? This wasn't no choice, right, guys? This wasn't no choice. This was their, mandate for me to get through this process, right? Because I didn't know at the time, but there were reasons why I had to get through this process, right? There were other things that I had to do after I got through this process, right? And it involved the family legacy. It involved the family downline, right? So I had to honor this legacy, guys, because now, not just talking about myself selfishly, why I wanted to get to this process, there was a bigger meaning here, right? There was a huge, bigger meaning here for me, and it involved family legacy. Number 12, guys, was to leave a lasting video, step-by-step presentation through a series of videos on YouTube for future generations, for family downline. Now, don't get that confused with what I said earlier. This is a step-by-step through my videos, leaving tips and tricks and breadcrumbs on how I got here, right? They need to know step-by-step how I got here. Let me give you an example. Now, I am very lucky because in my family, a lot of families throughout, particularly black families throughout our culture and our background in America, we don't have no representation of people in our family that are native, right? And I'm not just talking about football and basketball and do sports and entertainment. I'm talking about regular people who other than sports and entertainment, who made it otherwise, right? Through real estate, through business. We don't have a lot of examples, but still, particularly way back in the day, the 50s and 60s and in the 70s, right? In the 80s. We don't have a lot of examples of how I came up, during the 70s and 80s. You know what I'm saying? I think I'm a little special, a little different. At least I had a few people in my family. One in particular, my auntie, my mother's sister. I have some kind of representation of someone who worked hard and made it, right? My mother's sister, my aunt, and her husband had a real estate empire. They worked their ass off. When we went, my mother gave me the details of how they worked, and they eventually bought property. One property led to 2 properties, 2 properties led to 4, and eventually built themselves up to a substantial real estate empire, right? And they did it. And so I have that type of bloodline. I have that type of representation in my family that I can be proud of, that I can gravitate to. So, but I never knew, and a lot of folks speculate in the family we never really knew how they did it. We didn't know their daily, right? What was their daily practices? What they do on the daily to get to that point, right? They struggled, they worked, they grinded, right? But what took one grind to the other? How they always say on my channel, take it to another level. Well, what was their other level? What was their other level? How they do it, right? I never knew how they did it. So one of my big whys, guys, and number 12 here, was to leave a lasting video impression, right? My day-to-day basis. Big reason why I'm doing I talked about earlier when I started the video, talk about my 500K, $500,000 ticket challenge, to get my net worth to $500,000. I'm doing that video right now on my channel as well. That video presentation, that video updates on my channel. All right. So, but the reason why I'm doing all that, because I wanted to leave that, if anyone asks 50, 100, 200 years from now, and what I'm doing, this living, lasting legacy works as it applies to my family down the line, if there's just one family member who asks, that picks up on this and asks how I did it, they can look back on all these YouTube videos and see how I did it, right? There will be no speculation how I went from $40,000 in debt to learning about financial mentality, right? And how I learned about money and how money worked and how my relation to money improved, to getting out of debt, building financial stability, right? Learning about financial literacy, establishing stability, and getting myself on to build wealth. After that, there'll be no doubt, right? Because it's all laid out for them. That was a big why too. That was a big push. And that, one of the biggest pushes I ever had to push me through. One of the biggest why pushes I ever had was this one right here I just mentioned to you guys, right? So number 13 was to give hope to people out there who were born and raised like me. So a Pew Charitable Trust study says that 43% of the people born in poverty, born poor, stayed poor in their adulthood. And knowing that, guys, that was going to be me. I was going to be that statistic. That drove me, that why also drove me strong, because I did not want to be one of those statistics, right? I wanted to be those ones who rose up above all that. I didn't want that to be me, guys. Talk about me, how I want to have freedom of choice and how I live my life as I got older, and how I want to have freedom of choice in traveling without owing anybody no money, without, having debt collectors call. I didn't want that type of life, but I want to rise above the stat I just gave you guys. I did not want that. And that's a very hard thing mentality-wise. We talked about the things you learn as we grew up, right? Particularly, you guys heard these things, you right? Money don't grow on trees. You can't take it with you. Money's the root of all evilness. Money's the root of all, what do they say? Money's the root of all evil, right? That kind of thing, right? And it's so hard to get over these money messages, right? I went through this, guys. That was a big push for me to get over these things I just told you about. In order to get over those things I just told you about, I had to get over these statistics that people that look like me and born and raised where I come from on welfare, for example, right? I can't talk about anybody else, because I got to talk about where I was born and raised, and how I was raised, how the money messages in my life was hindering me as I got older. I had to get over all that, right? I did not want to be one of those statistics, right? And let me tell you guys something, man. It's not where you start. It's not whether you were born poor and raised poor and have a welfare mentality where it's hard for you to get over things in the financial world, but it's where you finish. It ain't where you start, it's where you finish. I'll give you guys the story. Back in the day, I was a track athlete as well as a football player. One of my special events in track, that when I was decent at, was the 400 meters. Now, when I raced the 400 meters, guys, back in the day, I was always known to start slow. They had people race out in front of me, right? They'd be meters in front of me, right? They'd be way out in front of me, right? Yards in front of me, right? What do you think I would usually start out, if there's 8 people in a race, I would start out 6th, 7th, or 8th, right? Sometimes I'd be dead last. The people who jumped out first, well, they jump out like gangbusters, right? They jumped out like they were, man on a mission, right? They're gonna blow me away, right? They get around to the 50-meter mark and they're way out in front. They get to the 100-meter mark, they were way out in front, right? But it's not where you start, it's where you finish. See, guys, I was a great finisher in the 400 meters. Some of these people didn't know that. So they get way out in front. Next thing you know, they see a guy. They see a guy with his tongue hanging out. My tongue was hanging out. But I was charging, coming back, making moves, eating up land. Great stride, coming back on. So by the time we got around to the last 20 meters, the last 10 meters, I was on their butt, hunting them down. Got to the last 5 meters, I was out in front. Finish line, I win. Didn't happen all the time, but it happened a lot of the times. So my 400 meters was my race, right? So it ain't where you start, right, guys? It's how you finish, right? And where you finish, right? And so that's how I looked at this. And this was a powerful why for me. It was a powerful why. I was not going to be denied. I was not going to be one of those stats out there. I was going to rise above it, right? I had to take to another level. There was no doubt about it. I had to learn my mentality when it came to money. I had to learn about money. I had to fight the demons of the money messages. I had to get over myself and my hang-ups. And I had to push forward. And that was quite the hell of a process, man. But you may be born poor, guys out there. Listen to me right now. You may have been born poor. You may be struggling right now. You may have the hang-ups of the past with bad money messages that you grew up with. You may be having a hard time right now with your mentality, as far as your welfare mentality, but you can evolve. You can learn from me, right? In my situation, guys. But it ain't where you start, it's where you finish. All right. Number 14, guys, is I want to be a ray of hope, a beacon of hope for people out there who are struggling with their finances, right? And struggling with financial literacy. You know, this all started back in the pandemic years of 2020, when I saw a lot of black folks out there struggling, and it was very apparent, right, who the have and have-nots were, right, guys? For me, I was at a company in Minnesota where we got furlough, which means we weren't laid off. We were furloughed, which means we knew we were going back to work. The company said, hey, it was one of those situations where everybody wants you to stay away from everybody, right? They want you to stay away from everybody, right? So the company sent me home. But here I am at home watching CNN, throughout the day, and it was front row news, right, guys? I had a front row seat to all of it, right? It was very apparent who the haves and have-nots were, right? And it came to me that people that looked like me and my color, right, my background, who I grew up with, were, you know what I'm saying, taking the brunt of it, right? So many black folks between 2020 and 2023 succumbed to that pandemic, guys. What was the number? What, 138,000 or 158,000 black people perished during that time period? It was very apparent to me that a lot of black folks struggle not only with their health during the pandemic, but they fought. Some of them didn't have health insurance. They were not at a financial situation standpoint to take care of what they need to take care of, right? It was very apparent to me. So one of the reasons why I started this YouTube channel, guys, was that particular reason, was to give hope for the people out there, to put myself in a position to be a ray of hope, a beacon of hope for people out there that needed help, okay? But it was very apparent, and that stayed with me throughout these years, right? It really did, man. It really did. And that's why I started this channel. Now this is why it came out. This is why it pushed me years later, after I was debt free. But that was a big why toward the end of my development and getting to a point where before I went to six-figure net worth. That was a big why. That was a big push, and that pushed me further to get out of this situation and put myself on a stable financial flat platform to be able to give back to those kind of people and give and light up my lighthouse, right? Light up my beacon of ray of hope out there for people who are looking for some type of salvation, some hope, to reach out to my YouTube channel. Reach out to me. Every time on my YouTube channel, every video I have, I make sure I put my personal email down below where people can reach out to me. If they have any questions or they need help. I have helped people throughout the years, guys, and I will continue to do so. So that was a big push right there. There's no doubt about it. That was definitely a big push. And because we talked about statistics in number 13, which I just gave you guys, that lingered on to number 14. And I didn't want to be a statistic, and I want to be able to help people who look like me, who struggle, not only during the pandemic, but who have struggled to establish a nice financial platform for themselves to not only get out of debt, but put themselves in a position where they can have it be a lasting legacy of their family members to build wealth down the road for their family. Number 15, guys, is simply this. Was to be able to take advantage of my citizenship here in America. What does that mean? Throughout my journey, I have met people who have come to this country hungry. I have met, you know what I'm saying, people who come to this country who want to make it, right? I have met people who, you know, I've met Latinos who tell me stories about their trials and tribulations, how they got to America and how they want to make it, right? I've listened to my Nigerian friends up in Minnesota. You know, I've met some good Nigerian brothers up there who come to this country hungry, right? Ready to make it with a plan, right? And so throughout that journey, I'm gonna have to create a video on that, but throughout that journey, I won't talk too much over here, but throughout that journey, meeting these people gave me an inspiration to prove myself, right? Prove my proof of concept and to honor my citizenship, right? To look at myself in the mirror and go, what the hell am I doing? Why am I languishing here as an American citizen? You know, to take control of my power here as an American citizen, right? One of the greatest countries on this planet. And what am I doing, right? I see these other immigrants coming here and with power and conviction, right? What am I doing? So that really drove me as well. That was a huge why as well, right? And meeting these people and talking to these people and learning their story really powered me in my empowerment, right? In my financial literacy empowerment. That was a big thing. That was a big thing. It really was. And let me tell you something, man. I had to be a proof of concept here, right? If I was going to do this YouTube channel, I better make sure I was successful and be able to have a proof of concept where I can help other people, right? Where people can look at me and go, well, he did it, I can do it, right? But in order to help other people, you got to help yourself first. I had to selfishly help myself first, guys, right? The plane's going down. Your culture's going down. Your group of black people going down. Your group of people who are struggling financially are going down. You better be able to make sure you take that oxygen mask and put it on yourself first so you can be able to survive, so you can take that oxygen mask and help give oxygen to other people, right? Well, they teach you about a plane going down, right? First things the people on the airline talk to you guys about, right? The plane's going down. Who do you help first? Sam, Bob, Jill, or you? You first. The oxygen mask on yourself, and then you're strong enough. Now you can help other people. I had to be a proof of concept. I had to prove myself out here in America. I had to power my empowerment, and I had to use my American citizenship, right? Living on the greatest country in the planet. I had to prove out. I had to take advantage of that, right? Because here, I can go grab my keys, right? Leave my house, grab my keys with no one, saying anything to me, and I can go make it work. I can go make it hustle. I can go grind for 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 hours a day, right? I can go do that. Free of choice. I have freedom of choice to make it happen. I have things in place here in this country where I can go make it happen. I can go get out of debt freely. I can go build wealth freely, right? Without no excuses, right? And so that was the path I was on, guys. How I languished for 45 years without doing that, I had to come down on myself for that. There was no blaming anybody, right? I had to go blame myself if it didn't work, right? So that's the last one, guys. Number 15 was, hey, go make it happen. If other folks can come to this country and do it, you can damn sure do it your damn self, right? And so, number 15 was put myself in position to take advantage of our American citizenship. All right, guys. So there you have it. Those are my 15 whys of why I started my financial health journey, guys. And there you have it, right? If you're new to the channel and like what you heard in this video, I'm gonna ask you to do one important thing for me. Share this information, this very valuable financial health information, with someone you care and love. You believe that they can use this information to their advantage going long term. Who knows? Maybe you can too. We've come too far to give up who we are. So let's take it to another level. Raise the bar. Only then can we toast to ancestor stars. Peace.